Hello y'all, and welcome to the YoungFolk Knits podcast. Today, let's talk all about beginner knitting patterns that I would still love to knit. Hello y'all, and welcome to the YoungFolk Knits podcast. My name is Casey, and this is a channel where I mainly chat about knitting, spinning, sometimes crochet, sewing, and who knows what else. I also love to share about living on a small farm here in Arkansas, where myself, my husband, and my children are beekeepers. We love raising chickens, animals, gardens, and spending time outdoors here in the foothills of the Ozarks. So if any of that sounds like something that you are interested in, then please be sure and subscribe so that you won't miss out on any new content. Today, however, I have a pattern roundup for you. I was at my friend Becky's house the other day, who is a hand knit letter on Instagram. You may recognize her from joining me on the podcast a few times. But she told me she thought it would be a good idea if I did a pattern roundup of beginner knitting patterns that I would still like to knit today. So she has a family member that has just started knitting recently, and my mom is wanting to learn how to knit, so I've got her a knitting bag full of all the essentials I think she needs to get started knitting. And when I think back to when I first started knitting, I was browsing Ravelry, I was browsing Etsy. Sometimes for a beginner knitting pattern, you sacrifice aesthetically pleasing projects for the sake of learning to knit. And while I do think it's important to maybe knit a washcloth, knit a hat, knit a scarf, knit something easy, I do think that there are a lot of beginner knitting patterns that are still fun, still aesthetically pleasing, still things that I would actually want now that I'm no longer a beginner knitter. So I have quite a few different categories. I'm going to assume that you know how to cast on, you know how to knit, you know how to purl, and if you know those things, then these patterns you should be able to easily look up on YouTube how to do something like a yarn over, how to join in the round. And since you have those basics already, those things you can add to your repertoire with some of these beginner-friendly patterns that are still great for no matter where you are on the scale from beginner to very experienced. So I have created a bundle on Ravelry that I will link in the description below. And if you click on that link, then you should be able to see all of these patterns that I'm going to talk about today. I have a lot of patterns in the bundle that I don't think I'll be able to get to all of them, but I will continue to add new ones as I see them that I think would be great in this category. So first of all, I want to talk about some flat knitting that is very beginner friendly. So the first pattern I found is on Purl Soho website, and it is a free pattern. It uses bulky yarn and size 13 or 9mm needles, so it's going to knit up really fast. And it is this super easy crib blanket in super soft merino. It has a lot of different color combos just in the sample pictures, so I think it can help beginners kind of get a good idea of yarns to put together, what it's going to look like when it's finished, plus your knitting garter. So this is going to be great practice for knitting flat, turning your work, starting over, back and forth, which is definitely a good skill to learn. But I love the stripes. Even though it's simple, I think a classic rectangular garter blanket is something that anybody would love. And in fact, I have quite a few minis that I am going to knit into a flat rectangular garter blanket. So I think this is a really cute, great free pattern. Another pattern that I saw on Pearl Soho is the Pebble dishcloth. So I really like the texture of this. It is DK weight yarn. You're using US 5 needles, and you can learn how to do a little loop on the end of your washcloth, or you don't even have to do that. But I think these would be a great stash buster and something that I would like to knit up. Have some easy, fast washcloths, not only for myself, but a nice little gift that you can add into a gift basket for friends. So I really like that pattern, and I've got it saved. Another pattern I found is the Teapot Turtleneck, which is published in Loopy Sue Designs, but it says that it is a free Ravelry download. It uses worsted weight yarn and US 6 and US 8, and it's a great way to practice your ribbing. Plus, it's just really cute, and I think it would be a cute gift for somebody that likes tea. I love tea. I hate coffee. So I really like this. I think it's super cute, fun stash buster, but also a nice simple pattern to practice your ribbing. One more in the non-garment type category is the hot water bottle cover by Emily Baudouin. I don't know. It is also a free Ravelry download, and it uses DK weight yarn and US 6 needles for the body. It's going to be a pretty quick knit, lots of stockinette. Looks like there's either increases or decreases, so that will be a good thing to practice. But still, it's going to be pretty easy, and if you make some mistakes, it's okay because it's your hot water bottle heater. It's not like you're going to be wearing it. I have a hot water bottle heater. I love hot water bottle covers, and I would definitely knit that. I think it would be fun to knit it in stripes, maybe to use up stash. If you wanted to make the pattern more advanced, you could add your own cables or your own color work. So it's a good base pattern to have. Or I think it would be fun to just knit it as is for your hot water bottle. Okay, next up, let's start from the feet and go up. I found some really cute slippers. I saved a couple, but the pattern I wanted to share is the Easy Chunky Slippers by Davina Choi, and this uses super bulky yarn, so I think that's great because a lot of times, especially as a beginner knitter in the United States, maybe you go to some big box stores and they have mainly that super bulky yarn that is everywhere, so it's really easy and accessible, and there's usually fun colors in it, and I think that these slippers would be super cute to get a color that you love and then pair it with a really great contrast color for the palm. I would totally knit these. I think that they're very cute. I would wear them. I may make some. Now, a great pair of beginner socks, I think, is the No Fear Shorty socks. This is a paid for pattern. It's $5 on Ravelry, but it is by Denise DeSantis, and it does use fingering weight yarn. I do have this pattern. I haven't made them yet, but I think that shorty socks are much less intimidating for a beginner, but I also love shorty socks. I think that they're great. If I've made a pair of socks with a 100 gram skein of fingering yarn, I probably don't have enough yarn left to make another pair of full calf length socks for myself. So shorty socks, I can usually eke out another pair in that length. Okay, I also saved a few mittens. First of all is the World's Simplest Mittens, which is by Tin Can Knits. It is a free pattern as well, and you can use any gauge. It's really cool the way that this is designed. So whatever yarn maybe you have, you can make it work for this pattern. And I think that everybody loves a pair of just plain simple mittens, because you make the really super fancy mittens and then you're outside and you don't want to do anything to felt them or get them dirty, and just some good old plain work mittens. I think that we all love to make a pair of those. Another pair of gloves that I have on my list I want to make soon is the penny gloves by Petite Knit. This is made out of a sport weight gauge yarn. I just really like the simplicity of them. I like the length, I like the thumb, the low profile. I really like the gusset, the way it looks. So this is definitely something that I have got in my list. Anytime it's the fingerless gloves or mitts, it just adds another element of easiness to the pattern. So I think these would be great for beginners as well. So I also saved a few neck and shoulders patterns. First of all is the Saturday Shrug by Jackie Rose. She actually has a few patterns in this. One is made with a worsted weight and a lace weight yarn held together. And then her other one is called the Sunday Shrug, and it is made with a super bulky gauge. Both of them are free. She does call for a tubular bind-on, but I don't necessarily think that's the easiest bind-on for a beginner. I definitely think that you could do it by watching YouTube videos. However, I'd probably recommend just doing a regular cast-on. I think this could definitely be done with a regular cast-on. It's not going to be as stretchy, so you'd want to try to make it as loose as possible. I'm currently making one, so it definitely had to go on this list. Another pattern I liked is by My Favorite Things Knitwear, and it is the Scarf #1. So it uses DK weight yarn, and I like it because you're getting some great texture here. You're learning to do those yarn overs, you're learning to do things like knit two together, which is simple and definitely something that a beginner can learn how to do. But I absolutely love this. I want one. I think that it's so cute for spring especially. And it's just this really great, simple stash buster. Also by the same designer, My Favorite Things Knitwear, is the Nelly Neck Warmer. I love how simple this is and low profile, but the texture from the rib still gives it a lot of interest. And I think that depending on the color you choose, this could be a really great neck warmer. And you're also getting a little bit of that Dickie style because it does come down a bit in the front. It has a bulky weight gauge. It's knit on US 8 needles. And you only need 191 yards. Now for some garments. So the first cardigan I saved is the Downtown Cardigan, which is by Stephanie Jessica Lau. It's made out of Line Brand Color Made Easy. It is a bulky weight gauge knit on US 11s. And I think it's just a really fun garter pattern. It reminds me a lot of some of the patterns you see on the We Are Knitters website. I love that garter. I love that bulky ribbing. And I think if you picked the right color, this would be a really fun cardigan. I would totally make that and wear that. I like it a lot. I've got some other cardigans saved as well, so be sure and take a peek in the bundle if you want to see more. So I do want to share a few different pullover style sweaters that I think would definitely be beginner friendly and something that I would love to knit. In fact, I have most of these saved in my queue. The first one is the Gallant sweater, which is a pattern by Kadri, and it is knit in super bulky. It is a raglan style top down pattern. Again, you are probably not going to be really picking up many stitches. It's going to knit up super fast. It has some fun details. And this is probably my favorite super bulky actual sweater pattern that I have seen. I like it a lot. And it looks like it would be a nice, simple beginner sweater pattern. Another pattern that is hugely popular is the Lento, which was in Lana Magazine issue 11. I love this sweater. Everybody is making one of these sweaters. So Amy Palco, who has a podcast here on YouTube, and also Rebecca from the Crayabea podcast, they are hosting a knit along for this Lento pattern, which is called Let's Lento. It just says the yarn weight is fingering, but I think you're actually using fingering and a mohair or a suri together. because you're using US 10 needles, so it's going to fly. But I do believe it is raglan pullover and top down, and I think that's a great construction for a more beginner friendly pattern. I definitely have plans to knit one of these. I think with that 15 stitch gauge, you're going to use a lot less yarn. So this is a great pattern. You can even knit your sleeves maybe to right here. So this would be a great pattern to maybe use up some fingering yarn in your stash and some mohair or Surrey yarn in your stash. Put them together and make a beautiful lento. Now a top that I really love, maybe more of a summer top, is the Luminous Summer, which is a pattern by Mimi Knit Design. This is knit out of DK weight yarn and US 7 needles, and it looks like a circular yoke pattern. So again, great top down, not having to pick up stitches like you would with a drop shoulder. It has a pretty pattern of eyelets along the neckline, which is still very simple, but adds a great little touch. And I would love to have this kind of as an oversized flowy top for spring and summer. I definitely have it saved in my favorites. I also have a vest saved, which is the Holiday Slipover by Petite Knit. So this is a super bulky gauge. It's a 10 stitch gauge and you knit it on US 15 needles. So this is going to knit up super fast. You're not having to knit sleeves, but you will have to pick up stitches to knit your ribbing on the armholes and the neckline. And also this is going to be stitches picked up for the front and the back. So it's a little bit more complicated, but I think it would be great to learn how to pick up stitches on this pattern. Because of the super bulky weight gauge, there's not as many stitches to pick up. So I really like that vest. I also saved a couple of hats, which I think are great. The first one is the classic ribbed hat by Pearl Soho. This is another free pattern. It's a DK weight gauge. So if you have a skein of DK weight yarn, it's a great stash buster. But I can tell you that it is a phenomenally great fitting hat. I have knit 2 of these and I love them. I knit the large size because I have a big head and big hair most of the time. But I think this is a great hat for anybody. Another hat that I think would be fun is the Musselburgh hat, which is a pattern by Isolde. It has 12.4K projects on Ravelry, so there's tons of projects. But the great thing about this hat is you don't even have to knit ribbing. You are literally just knitting a tube. So this is great for a more beginner knitter. You can just cast on and you can just knit, 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 knit. But obviously by the number of projects, you can see that it is hugely popular with all knitters. And I have it saved. It's a hat I'm very interested in making as well. Alright, I think that's all I have time for today. But if you're a beginner knitter, I hope you found some patterns that excite you. If you're an experienced knitter, I hope you found some patterns that you would still love to make. If you enjoy pattern roundup videos like this, then please make sure and subscribe. And as always, I really appreciate the views, the likes, the comments. It all means so much to me. So thank you very much for joining me today. And until we chat again, happy knitting, y'all.